What's up, y'all? What's good? Welcome to the What Up Doe Show. It's your boy Dame D, and I am back with another one. What's going on, y'all? What's good? What's good? Hopefully, everybody is having a great Friday. It's a Freestyle Friday tonight. I'm waiting for a few people to come on in, but let me check my audio and video before we start tonight's conversation. So yeah, Freestyle Friday tonight. Big Hen, come on in. We don't start it up the show, big dog. Come on in. I'm waiting on you. So yeah, let me check my audio and my video to make sure you guys can hear me. Make sure everything is everything. So how's everybody Friday been going? What up though? Facebook. What up, YouTube? Okay, here go Big Hen right there. There we go. Big dog, what up though?
What it do?
What it do? Go ahead and introduce yourself to the show. We just started up.
Big Hand from the 313. What up, though?
What up though? What up though? What up though, big dog? Okay, look, I'm about to check my audio and video and make sure
What up, though?
okay, there we go. What up though? Can be heard. So I just want to make sure we can be heard. So what's good, big dog? How your Friday been going so far?
I can't complain. It's been productive. I got a few things accomplished. Got the van back, and you know,
Okay,
I
okay,
can't
that's what's up.
complain.
We got a car PD M8714 said I subscribed and I just got a notification. So I must enjoy the content. I appreciate you for the subscription. Appreciate you, man. And I want to thank everybody who subscribed of lately. We are getting ready. We are approaching 1K subscribers. It's a goal that we set out. What up, though? 313. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's my hometown too, big dog. So I appreciate the subscribe, man. And we're gonna need to get tonight's show started because I cannot be up too late. So I got to be in bed early tonight. I got to get up and just get off of work, and I got to get back and be right back at work tomorrow. So it's going to be a good conversation, a good show. I invited a few people to come in. We got Big Hen that's always here with us on Freestyle Friday. So we're gonna start tonight's conversation up, man. I don't know how familiar you are with the situation, but we had a 27-year-old. Her name was Tania Miller, who recently, a few weeks ago, the week of Juneteenth, went out to Florida, left where she was from, drove down to Florida to celebrate Juneteenth, and was found on June 18th, hanging from a tree. Give me your thoughts, give me your opinion on this, Big Hen. And then before you start talking, man, there has been no talk of this from the mainstream media. It's been me and a few other people that really has talked about this show. Give me your thoughts, give me your opinion on this, man, because this is something that we've talked about multiple times. We've done multiple shows on black men that's been found hanging, a few truck drivers, a few students that's been found hanging, so this has been an ongoing situation, and at the end of the day, man, it's fishy to me. So give me your thoughts and your opinion on this situation, bro. And
Uh,
she's from out of Michigan. She's from where we from.
yeah. So my prayers go out to the family. It's just a situation going on in those down south type areas where people is witnessing and seeing this type of stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's this Jim Crow stuff they trying to bring back, and a lot of racist people down there. I don't want to, I don't know, man. I
Hey
think it
man,
need to be
you got to call it
investigation.
for what it is. We got to say it. It's no longer time to hold back on the worst, man. We've had, like I said, we've done multiple. I can count on pretty much one hand how many shows that I've done of blacks being found and down south in these areas like that found hung. My question to you, and those that's watching, man, it's rare, and I've done a short on this. You had a few people that say, yeah, they family members have actually done that, but it's rare. It's one in a million. How many times do you hear about a black person that's committing suicide by the way of hanging? It's suspicious. It's fishy. In my opinion, I think the authorities has a lot to do with this. Because there's never no evidence found at the scene, and who would have the control to be able to get somebody to be relaxed and allow for them to cuff you or do whatever they're doing to be able to get them in a position where they're hanging themselves. So give me your opinion on this, man. This, we have to wake up.
I
We have
mean,
to realize
to
that
me,
go ahead.
to me, it's obvious somebody trying to relay a message. somebody's trying to relay a message. Is it towards black people or is it towards racist people? I mean, what's going on? I think the governor, the mayor, and everybody needs to address this situation down there. The girl not from there, her parents. I mean, it's just a lot going on with that. And like you said, this is not our first time addressing people being hung, the truck drivers, and they just happen to be black. So
Yeah,
we ain't
that's
heard about
crazy,
no white
because
people
I can
hanging from
see
no
if we
trees.
exactly,
We ain't
and
heard
I can
about
see
no
if it
white
was
people hanging or
exactly what
no
you
other
said.
races hanging from no trees. So there's got to be some type of investigation. I believe that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna read a few of the comments at Carpedia M8714 said since the year 2000 over 70 alleged lynchings have occurred. Y'all better get yourselves ready because it's red. I'll show it. He said it's I stay ready. Yeah, man. We have to stay ready. I'm gonna put that comment up so you guys can see that. But yeah, and I've been talking about this during multiple shows, man. We've done multiple shows on this. You have to stay ready. And then I believe this was a sun downtown that this young woman went to celebrate Juneteenth in, and I didn't understand that, but at the end of the day, I understand. This young woman went down to celebrate, a national holiday, Juneteenth, and end up losing her life, and it's beyond fishy. Like you said, Big Kid, how many white people do we find hanging from trees, no evidence? And then it's always been found that these people are committing suicide, no evidence, no nothing. Dr. Richie from the Young Turks, he actually did the story. This was one of the first main media, because the main media, they're not doing any coverage on the story at all. So he was one of the first mainstream medias to talk about this that actually confirmed that. He actually confirmed talking with the family, man. So it's a lot of fishy stuff going on. Even the family said, why would this young woman drive all the way down to Florida? She was going down there to actually turn up, is what their words were. And this woman end up dead. You know what I mean? So it's a disgrace, man. It's a slap in our face for us to keep watching this shit go on to happen, and us allowing for the authorities to come back with this homicide bullshit, with no foul play. They got to think that we're stupid to continue watching this shit and just sitting back and allowing this shit happen, Big Ken.
Yeah, I just feel like, all our young people now, everybody needs to be aware. You can't go nowhere without letting your parents and your loved ones know what your next move gonna be, especially when you going away from home, because you see you might not come back home. You see you might be hung from a tree. You see it's a lot of stuff fit, like you said, a lot of fishy stuff, racist fishy stuff going on. And right now I just feel like this is time for everybody to see what's going on and just be aware.
Yeah, and I'm gonna read a few of the comments. Chrissy, and it's kind of hard for me to see a lot of these comments. I don't have my glasses and these things are in the way. But Chrissy, I believe 82109 said, do you assume that white people did it? I'm not going to assume that black people did it, because why, why are black people, going to these southern towns being found hanged? I mean, who else is doing it? You know what I
Right.
mean? And just like our Carpedia 8714 said hanging from trees, the autopsy reports, broken legs and arms. How is all this shit happening? That's a great point. We mentioned that in a few of the other shows. A lot of these people are coming back with broken limbs and things like that. So do I assume that white people did it? Who else is doing it? Most black people don't even know how to fucking tie a tie, let alone how to tie a noose to be able to hang themselves properly. So it has to be the proper people. It has to be someone that people feel relaxed. So yes, I'm gonna say the police probably has a lot to do with, probably pulling people over, them pulling people out of the cars, because how else can you make any other people feel relaxed getting out of their cars or being handcuffed and shit like that with no evidence, no trace, no nothing, no cell phone? So yes, I will have to say the police and maybe yes, white people has a lot to do with this, because you got to ask yourself this, white people, who who invented this whole lynching shit? We've been going through this shit since, we've been here in America. So yeah, at the end of the day, you would have to assume that the same people that was doing this to our ancestors are doing this shit to us now. So, and I want to ask you that same question. Who do you assume that's doing it to? At Chris 882109. So Big King, give me your thoughts and your opinion on that, man.
I mean, for any race to assume that a black man or a black woman hung themselves from a tree, I would have to say that you might want to check your mental because
Yeah.
after all the stuff that we went through, it's no way, like you said, we barely can tie a tie. We're not finna get up nowhere and choke ourselves out or hang ourselves to commit suicide away from home like that. So yeah, that it is what it is, bro. It need to be an investigation. We calling it what it is. We not sugarcoating nothing. We believe it's some racist shit, and that's what it is. You got to call a spade a spade. Ain't no nigga or no black person jumping up on no tree hanging himself. That's just period what it is. We could cancel Christmas on any other thoughts.
Yeah, and I don't even know why. People have the reason to, ask questions. But yeah, I assume that it's probably a group of white people that has some type of law or authority, that's doing this shit. Because like I said, at the end of the day, what black people would actually take the chance of trying to actually killing this person, taking them to a tree, tying them up, not getting away with this shit and not being caught or found. We have cameras and flat cameras, and we're gonna do a show on this. You can, and I use my Waze app all the time, coming back and forth from work. His flat cameras all over, cameras everywhere. You mean to tell me there's always no trace? You have to assume that the people that's always have been doing this are the people who's doing this shit. And I'm going to just be honest. I don't think black people are doing this. This is
No.
something that has been, that has happened to our ancestors that was horrible, atrocious. So why would we go and repeat what already has happened? That was a horrible thing that happened to our people. So yeah,
Why we leave
you just got to
Michigan and
assume,
go down
you have to
south?
assume position and realize who's doing this shit. We've been for long turning the other cheek, just going with the program. And you have to realize, man, that we got to get some feet on the ground. We got to do more. There has to be more coverage on this shit. And I'm just going to be honest, we have to get the FBI involved in this, and we have to do our own due diligence on this shit, because we know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm not, so Chris 82109, he said, where did lynching start? I mean, where that shit started. There you go. One of the main places, lynching was, started in slavery. And then, when slavery is over, and just through the whole Jim Crow situation, it was a lot of, once slavery is over, was over, and I'll just say through the shit, all in those southern states, man. There were so many lynchings that you couldn't even. It was like almost a everyday thing, a ritual. So we know who started this shit. We know where this shit comes from. We just got to get down to the bottom of this shit. As a group. We have to be careful. We have to watch our surroundings because apparently, they're singling people out that's by themselves. You're never
that's what I
hearing
was about to say.
large group of people, or more than one people. FBI isn't going to do shit yet, because they probably got their hands tied into this shit, but we have to figure out what keys, what we're going to have to do with this, because this is a serious ongoing situation. Because I've done multiple. I can think about 5 or 6 shows where I've done where young men, a lot of truck drivers who were like, just starting off unexperienced to, going to these areas were found hung dead. For people to think that, these young people who just started these careers will drive thousands of miles away from home and go hang their motherfucking selves. That's ridiculous. But look, we got a lot of people here watching. I need for you guys to make sure you're hitting that subscribe button on your way in. Your boy is knocking on the door. We're less than 100 subscribers away from 1K, so it's going to help you out, your boy out. So please hit that button, but yeah, Big Ken, we people must think that we are a fool to continue to think that our people, are literally driving thousands of miles away from home and committing suicide. This young woman went down there to celebrate, end up losing her life.
And now this is the question that I got for you, bro. The people that her family members that she went down there to see, no one had no answers. Like they just found her, and she wasn't with nobody. Could nobody? I just, it needs to be investigation, bro.
Yeah, and you should see the comments. I don't know if you're reading the comments, Big King, but you got a comment said, let me go back to this. Said, white people aren't the problem. Your fellow brothers aren't the problem. Why do you think, and I want you to respond to this, Shadow Bear, why do you think it's our people that's the problem that's doing these hangings? I'm almost willing to bet my life that it's our people don't have anything to do with this shit. Like I said, at the end of the day, this is something that was an atrocious, a horrible thing that, that was going on that your people was doing to our people. So why would our people go and reinvent or reundo some horrible shit, that we know that's, that it was already a horrible thing committed, to our people at one point in time. So for you to make that comment, you have no respect to the black race, because you should know, if you're anything more than 5 years old, with lynchings and hangings, what was done to black folks and what that shit meant, to a group of people. So for people to say shit like that or ask stupid questions like that, they're either trolling or just plain ignorant, to what happened to our people, Big Hen.
Yeah, what's understood don't have to be explained. If that person don't know about lynching and the things that black people went through, this is not the program for you.
And let me say this, most black folks can't be racist. We don't have the power, to be able to control a destiny, so you're wrong. Learn your facts or your history. But I want to be able to read everybody comments, because everybody comments count. At the end of the day, it's our opinion, it's our thought. But for anybody to think that black folks have something to do with this, you're not using your logic. Because the only logic that I see is this shit is coming from a group of people who've already have done this shit, who's experienced at doing this, who's experienced at getting away. It's just too much technology that our people get jammed up on for even trying to commit regular crimes. For these crimes to continue to keep coming back, case after case, no evidence. You gotta read between the lines. It's some fishy shit going on. And guarantee you it's going to come out eventually. We may not hear about it no time soon, but eventually, everything that goes on in the dark will come to the light, and that will come one day. Hopefully we all are alive. Hopefully this young woman family gets justice, because it was a horrible thing. But Big Hen, do you have anything else to add about that subject? Because if not, I want to talk about this other subject real quick.
No, I just feel like it need to be investigation, and for all the Caucasian white people that's watching and you don't understand what lynching and racism and things like that is, ask your grandparents, ask your mother, your father. I'm quite sure they'll break it down to you, because we ain't got time for that. We on here trying to figure out what happened to this young woman, and I feel like it needs to be an investigation. We ain't got time to be explaining to people
look at
about
these comments,
lynching and
Marcus.
stuff like that.
And this is who we're dealing with. At John's Cerna, another comment just came through. But at the end of the day, man, this shows you, and this is getting ready to lead up to the next conversation that we're getting ready to have. This shows you exactly these comments that we're seeing here in the comment section, what white people, how they really fucking feel about us. Just come out and say it. You guys don't give a fuck about what goes on to the black race. Because if you did, you guys would be sitting here asking good questions about, why do you think this shit is going on, or will be giving good advice and things like that. You know the history of these hangings and these lynchings, and you are some racist motherfuckers for y'all to come in here and say some shit like that. A young woman lost her life. I believe she was a mother. A mother lost her daughter. Her father lost her daughter, and her sibling lost their sister. So for you racist white motherfuckers to come in here and trying to be disrespectful, everything that goes, like I said, goes on in the dark will come to the light. So but look, I want to touch on this another subject that, is some racist shit that's going on that's been happening in the Black community. And that's why I say, the law system has no regard for the lives of Blacks, outside of the Black community, and a lot of these motherfuckers that we see here in this comment section don't either. Let's talk about what's the young man name? It was a 1-year-old. I'm getting ready to give you his name in a second. KOHEN, I think KOHEN WILE. So don't quote me on that. But this young man, he was shot and killed by the police in a situation where they were at Walmart. His mother, and I believe it was a friend of the mother's, they were in there shopping, left out security, and I believe police chased him out, tried to stop these young women from leaving, accused them of shoplifting, blocked the young woman in, and the other woman who was driving, they tried to pull off, tried to veer away from the police officers, and they shot the car up, injuring the driver, which the woman who they accused of shoplifting, and then the mom, who 1-year-old, I believe, KOHEN WILE. So give me a second, I'm going to look his name up. He was shot and killed. They shot and killed this 1-year-old. She actually lifted the 1-year-old up to show the police and authorities that it was a child in the car, and they still shot this fucking car up. I don't know if you're familiar with this case. Give me your opinion. In my thoughts, in my opinion, this is another situation where whites and authorities, meaning the police, has no regard for Black lives. Because they knew and they saw that there was a child in the car, and they still shot this car up. So give me your thoughts and your opinion on this.
That's fucking horrible. Again, my sympathies.
She did not use her child as a shield, you fucking idiot. She actually came out. I mean, that's Roger Ramjet. She came out and made a statement. She actually lifted her child up to show what mother would use her child as a shield. So that was wrong. Go ahead, Big Ken. Sorry about that, but I just had to correct this idiot.
Yeah, bro, that's just I don't have words for that. It sounded like it was a horrible situation, and may God be with them.
Yeah, it was a horrible situation. They saw that it was a child in the car, and then you got these idiots in the comment section making statements like, why would you run from the police? They wasn't running. I'm not going to say they wasn't running from the police, but at the same time, and it's going to be shown, they did not. It was shown already and proved these young women were not shoplifting. And then the question that should be asked is, why would you shoot when you see that it's a child in the car? You know what I mean? Get the license plate. Get them another day. It's almost, to me, like these motherfuckers has a quota, and it's almost a must that they take a life, because history is telling us this. At the end of the day, where is the sympathy and the empathy that we see that the authorities and police have for whites when they're put in these situations?
There is none. There is none. The lynching, the racism, the hangings, the everything that was happening back during the Jim Crow era. It seemed like we finna go into some type of civil war. I said it a year ago. I don't want to see that, but if things keep on going the way they're going, you got Carmelo Anthony, the Chinese man killing, this situation you just brought up. I mean, like, this last month, bro. This all we've been talking about. So if we
Listen,
can't be the
and
only
what's
one
so
that's
crazy,
seeing this.
this shit is not ironic. Leading up to June 10th, all this shit that's been going on, if we don't wake up and see read between the lines and see this shit for what it is, this shit is never going to stop. And we have to be able to, counteract this shit. Because of course, this law system is not set up for us to win. So that's another story, another discussion, on how to counteract this shit. Because at the end of the day, ain't no blacks motherfucking driving thousands of miles away, and all these stories that we're hearing about blacks, and not to get off the subject, because we were talking about the 1-year-old, but no black is driving thousands of miles away from home, hanging them motherfucking selves. That's something that we don't do. But yeah, this 1-year-old boy, this shows that even authorities, even the police, doesn't have any sympathy or empathy for our women and our children. They saw that there was women in the car. She did not. She tried to evade these motherfuckers, and they still shot the car up, big head. So look, we have to do something as a community. We have to do something as a people. We see that we are being targeted, and that's what's going on, man. We are being targeted as a group. Pretty much, it never stopped. This targeting shit has never stopped.
Yeah, it's getting bad.
Yeah, it's beyond bad. And for them to think that we sitting here watching this shit, not understanding what's going on, it's a smack in our face, man. At the end of the day, this shit keeps happening. It's like every other month, you're hearing about a black person hanging themselves, and you don't hear this about whites. I've never heard in my lifetime where we found a white person in the hood hanging from a tree.
That part.
But yeah, man, the disrespect for the Black lives, man, from our counterparts, pretty much it's a smack in the face, and we see the situation we're in, because at the end of the day, man, only thing we try to do is get along, and that's what we've been trying to do since we've been here, trying to get along with these folks that pretty much have no regard for our life, and that's at the end of the day, at the end of the day, most blacks are not racist. Most blacks try to get along with whites. Why do you think most blacks want to stay around whites or things like that? Because we're not racist. It's you. So we need to.
I've always
Go ahead.
I've always said this. How can a black person be racist after everything that we went through? And even if we was racist, how could you blame us for being racist?
Man, listen, you can't be racist when you have no power to control a group of people's
Right.
destiny or situation. So that right there, when they say stupid fuck shit like that, that let you know that most of these dumb fucks
They
don't
have
know
to
what the
think
fuck we're
about
talking
that.
about.
Black people cannot be racist. We never impose any slavery on any other race.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we
Yeah,
cannot be racist.
at all. So these are just, a lot of these people
That's
are
a
just
stupid
trolls.
comment.
And then a lot of these people just don't want to face the reality or facts, that you are the racist, sick motherfuckers. Because if we go back to a lot of the stuff that you're at, and I'm not saying all white, it's the ones that really don't understand history, the ones that don't try to understand what happened to a group of people, and don't have empathy or sympathy for this group of people, because you want motherfuckers to have empathy and sympathy when shit goes wrong with your people. Like same thing with this Austin Metcalf shit. You motherfuckers was quick to jump on this motherfucker who got some shit started and his life was took. So when it's all good for them, and these motherfuckers wanna jump on the bandwagon. So but like I said, at the end of the day, when the shoe is on the other foot, these motherfuckers are in an outrage. They were in an outrage with this Carmelo Anthony situation. And it just showed you, like I said, the respect that the law system have, the respect that these white folks have for our people. And the good white people, you need to start stepping up, talking to your motherfucking people, putting them a motherfucking check. Because most black people try to be good to you motherfuckers. And try to be straight up with you guys. It's you who show this motherfucking racist bullshit. It's you who motherfuckers who started this shit, who actually invented this shit. You know, so, but look, man, at the end of the day, it was a horrible thing. This 1-year-old lost his life. You know, I don't give a fuck if she was shoplifting. They knew that it was 2 women and a child in the car. You know, at the end of the day, like I said, we see many of situations and cases where white motherfuckers are pulling guns out and they live to either get away or to tell their story. You know, we see too many similar situations where Black folks are put in situations where their lives are taken. You know, so we have to be smarter when we're put in situations like this, you know, because we see that the authorities, the police has no regard for our lives, you know, even for children. You know, and it showed back in the days what these motherfuckers was doing to our children. They were using our babies as alligator bait. You know, that's some horrible shit. You know, for you motherfuckers to even think that to even call Black folks racist and things like that. You motherfuckers was doing some of the most racist, devilish shit that that one day you're going to reap what you sow from a lot of this shit that went on to our people. You know, like I said, all the atrocious, all the raping, the pillaging, the stealing that your motherfucking ancestors done, not just to our people, but, you know, we're talking about our people. You know, that's why we don't, a lot of people, a lot of Blacks feel the way that they feel against you. You know, and we still even give most of you guys the benefit of the doubt. Go ahead, big kid.
It's called whitewashing, man. They've been doing it for years. Anything that's not white, they try to make it white by whitewashing it and taking everything that Black people did, and from complexion to the music to everything, you know, they whitewashed it. They made everything Black turn into white. And I mean, that's not just in Africa, that's in Mexico, that's in China, that's in everybody, Italian people, they know that. You know, everything that was dark, they told them it was wrong to look a certain kind of color. You need to try to mix with us to become more whiter so you can be more respected. So if it ain't white, it ain't right. They know that. We don't really have to keep on explaining to white people about racism. And the ones that's acting dumb, they just gonna continue to act dumb. There's nothing we can do about
listen,
that.
I'm sitting here reading all these racist white comments that's coming through.
Oh
you
yeah,
know, look,
they
at
coming.
the end of the day, man, we
coming.
have to start taking justice and authority into our own hand when we're dealing with these whites. You know, and really that's what it is. You know, as we see, you know, and as we've been shown throughout our time and our history here, that these motherfuckers really don't respect us. Only thing that they really respect is these monies and these dollars. So really, the conversation that we need to have going forward, man, is really segregation, a way that we need to go back. You know, because like I said, man, too many of our people has been railroaded. Too many lives has been taken, you know, through this racism shit. You know, just racism. You know, because like I said, at the end of the day, there's no Blacks hanging themselves from a motherfucking tree. You're going to need one or more people to be able to pull this bullshit off.
Facts.
Hey, listen, Black on Black crime is going to be a must when you're living amongst each other. Same thing with white on white crime. We just don't talk about y'all shit, you know, and the mainstream media is not really going to put y'all white on white crime out there like how they do Black on Black crime. So, you know, when people say this stupid fuck shit like that, you don't know what you're talking about, and you don't know the history of how the mainstream media works and how they work to try to clean y'all bullshit up and not portray you guys on the news or pretty much just trying to drag y'all dirty laundry in the streets, but they'll put our shit out there in the streets. You know, but like I said, man, at the end of the day, we have to start taking justice into our own hand, man. You know, our women, our children are being murdered, you know, in front of our own eyes. And what are we supposed to do with this shit, big kid? You know, because if this was my 1-year-old child, man, I don't know what the fuck I would have done.
We got to wake the fuck up and see what's going on. It's happening really more down south than anything. So I would say to everybody down south, pay attention to what's going on. All the truck drivers, any college students moving by yourself or doing anything, you got to watch the way you move. Now, shit is different. You know what I'm saying? You got to call a spade, and that's just what it is. It's happening down south, and like you said, it could be somebody trying to relay a message. This is what they want to happen. They want to start a race war, and if that's what they want, that's probably what the fuck
Hey,
they're gonna get, because we're not
hey,
going
look.
for that shit no
In
more.
my opinion, it's already started. You know, with all these fucking lynchings and hanging, you know, what's been going on throughout the country with the disrespect, the murder, even with the law system, man. Like even with the young black men, and even women, you know, that we've seen running away, you know, from cops being clearly shot in the motherfucking back. You know, even the law system is even part of, you know, of this whole, you know, onslaught against Black America. You know, and that's what's really been going on. It's never stopped. You know, and we just need to wake up as a group of people and realize this shit. You know, we're so far stuck up these motherfucking asses that we don't even realize that we're still being slaughtered and murdered every day. You know, it is what it is. Like Shadow Band said, hey, I call a spade, and a spade is a spade. You know, no black folks at the end of the day are hanging themselves. You know, you're seeing no white babies being shot. Why don't we see black officers in white neighborhoods shooting and killing and doing things like that? That's the question that you have to ask.
Facts.
You know, so that should let you know. You know, but like I said, man, at the end of the day, it's going to take us to be able to clean this mess up, because what it is, it's a mess. You know, and we've allowed these motherfuckers to do these horrible things to our people, coming in our communities.
And,
You know,
let me say this, right?
disrespect.
Let me
You know,
say
we
this,
give a lot
bro.
of our dollars to the community, even to the Asian community too. You know, most of these groups of people that we're talking about, man, has no respect or no regards for Black Americans. You know, and at the end of the day, man, we put a lot of money in these people's pocket. You know,
Let
so
me say
like
this,
at the
bro.
end of the day, man, like I said, you know, it's going to take us. We're going to have to start talking about segregation.
Let me say this, bro. That Martin Luther
Go ahead.
King shit, that marching shit, we tried that. That shit didn't work. We done with that shit. We going back to Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X type strategies, because that's the shit that got people's attention. That the, you know, the turn the other cheek shit ain't work for us. You know,
No,
we
we've been
can't do
turning the
that
other
no more.
cheek for years, man. You know, and I'm sitting here looking at all these comments. It's horrible, you know, for even
Yeah, they
for white folks to
listen.
even come here and make
We
these comments, because we, you know, at the end of the day, we're stating a lot of facts that's been going on to our people for years.
You know, bro, they can come in the comments for the simple fact they know what the fuck going on. They can make all these silly ass comments, and maybe they don't know, maybe they don't know. You need to educate yourself about the things that we are saying. We're not being racist at all. This is
At
the
all.
things that happen to black people. So if you being offended by what we said or saying, this is not the fucking show for you.
You know, so look, man, at the end of the day, you know, this 1-year-old child, he did not ask for his life to be taken. The authorities knew that this baby was in the car. They knew that it was two women and a child in the car, and they still decided to shoot and injured the driver and took this young man's life. You know, so at the end of the day, man, hopefully this family gets the justice. Hopefully this young man gets the justice that he needs. He was a young 1-year-old a baby, never going to see um any parts of this life. You know what I mean? So hopefully they get the justice for this young man. Big Hen, give everybody your last words. Let everybody know what you got going on, man, and where they can reach
Reach me. You can excuse me. You can reach me on a What Up Though show on Fridays. We're gonna be talking about topics like this and other good things like this. So just keep on keeping on watching what we got going on, and we're gonna keep these type of topics coming at you. But what I really want to say to the white people that's watching, black people cannot be racist towards white people because you started it. You started it. We cannot be racist towards nobody that started hanging and lynching us, but we can
you. Right. You know, so
watch our back.
when white folks say shit like that we're racist, they don't even know the meaning of of being a racist or what racist
Right.
is. You know,
Right.
racist is pretty much a racist has the power to control the ability of pretty much you and your future. But go
Man,
ahead,
go do
Big
your
Ken.
go
Finish
read
letting
your
everybody
books
know
and
where they
you
can
go
reach you,
see
man, and
where the
what you got going
racist
on.
shit come from. You know what I'm saying? You go see where the racist shit come from, and then you come back and give us another show about what you learned, because we already know what we know.
Oh, and that's a fact, man. You know, so look, man, it definitely was a great conversation. And look, I need for you guys to go and hit that subscribe button. Everybody on Facebook, please come over here to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, then you can go back to Facebook. But I want to thank everybody who made comments, even the ignorant motherfuckers who made the racist comments. All comments are I'm gonna say welcome. All comments are welcome, you know, but at the end of the day, I want to thank everybody who came in, made a comment. This was definitely a great discussion to have, man. And at the end of the day, man, we have to be aware of our surroundings when we're in these southern states. A young woman, listen, and all the shows that we did about these black folks being hung from trees. Now it's women that we're finding. This is the first woman that I've reported on. You know, all the shows that I did in the past has been men. So they're not discriminating. They're even hanging women now. You know, so we have to be careful. We have to travel and pack when we're visiting. We have to be vigilant on who we're around. And you cannot trust the authorities. You know, you have to you have to almost ask for you have to almost drive to a safe area where it's well lit, you know, because at the end of the day, I think the authorities has a lot to do with this shit going on, you know, because I think they're getting people in vulnerable positions, like with the police being there, pulling you out of your car, handcuffing you, and then being able to do what they need to do to hang you and take your life. So at the end of the day, you know, we have to just be smarter and then what we've been, you know, because at the end of the day, man, a lot of lives have been took with these hangings and these lynchings, you know. So we have to get behind this shit. So look, it's been a great one. It's been a good show, and we're definitely going to talk about this 1-year-old Cohen Wiley, the young man that was shot and killed by the police. We're definitely going to come back and do more talking about this, you know, because it was a horrible thing. And like I said, at the end of the day, this should show all blacks, you know, how society, how the authorities, how police are looking and feeling about the lives of black folks, you know, because we've been seeing it. You know, it's not just me talking. I'm talking about shit that's actually been happening throughout the country, you know, throughout my lifetime. You know, so at the end of the day, man, I want to thank everybody who made a comment, and please, you know, please make sure you guys go over there and hit that subscribe button. Your boy set this goal out, you know, a few years ago when I set this YouTube journey. When I started this YouTube journey, I should say 2 years ago, this is one of my goals, and we're right there at the door. So I'm less than 100 subscribers away. So I need for each and every one of you guys to go over there and hit that button. So look, I don't have anything else to add.
Hit that button.
Yep, I don't have anything else to add to the show. It's been another one. At the end of the day, you guys enjoy your weekend. It's your boy, D, and we are out. Peace.